Yeah, they're definitely bringing a lot to the table.
Yeah.
And speaking of New York, it really feels like its own character in a way that maybe it hasn't in other comic books. How familiar are you with the city? Like, what kind of research goes into making it a part of the supporting cast?
That's editor Steve Wacker's job, because I've lived in New York and I've done a couple of tours of duty there, and Marcos has lived in New York. You know, we all know our way around, but Steve is a nut for hidden New York. Steve is a nut for the places that you don't normally see, the train yards and this building and that alleyway and so forth. So he's constantly sending us reference and stuff. There was a sequence in issue 2 or 3, I guess it was, where it was this beautiful garden that is built on an old elevated train platform out there. That's a real place. And so we're constantly, whenever I talk to Steve about where to set this scene or that scene, I'm always, you know, soliciting ideas from him as to where do you think, where would be good.
It's nice to have that in too, because those little places add like authenticity instead of just generic cityscape.
Yeah, in the
places to tie to.
Yeah, in the issue of Spider-Man that comes out next week, it's the first part of a Daredevil crossover. I wrote that as well, and at Steve's suggestion, I had Daredevil and Spider-Man just for a couple of panels comparing the routes they take uptown when they swing. And they go from this place to that place because that, you know, once they did the whole new facade on the Flemish building, it's not the same anymore. So now you go up 57th, and this is where you definitely turn left on 5th, and I like it, and they're real places. I like the verisimilitude of that.
Nice. And with Spider-Man, because you've been writing him lately as well, how are you kind of avoiding making Daredevil also a wisecracking acrobatic?
It's
a tight road.
That's a good question, because that was the first thing I did was I made sure that I didn't use any Spider-Man. Well, we used the Spot right off the bat in the first issue. That's a Spider-Man villain. But beyond that, when we started talking about who else to throw Daredevil up against, my hardcore rule was no Spider-Man villains for a while, just to
give him a break.
Give him a break, and just to minimize that comparison. And then beyond that, putting them together in a story has reminded me that they like each other reasonably well. They work well together, but they hate being teamed up, because from Daredevil's point of view, Spider-Man never shuts up. And for a guy who relies on his hearing to do a lot of what he does, that's a problem. Spider-Man hates being teamed up with Daredevil because Daredevil leads with his face. Because Daredevil's just like, well, let's go. You know, if Daredevil sees an army of 100 guys, Daredevil will be in it before Spider-Man can go, let's come up with a plan. So they both have their little eccentricities that don't always work well with each other. But I think the biggest difference, and I keep this in mind when I write both the characters, is that without... All right, you know how we're all different around different people? When you're with your parents, you're a different person than you are with your college people, than you are... From my point of view, and this is also something I talked about with my editor, when Spidey's with other characters, he's a different guy. But when he's with Daredevil, and only when he's with Daredevil, he sort of turns back into like the 16-year-old boy, because he sees in Daredevil, this is the guy I wanted to grow up to be. Like, this is, you are confident, you seem, from my perspective, to always have it together. You know, you've got everything going for you, your career is on a high, and so he doesn't turn into a babbling idiot, but in the back of Spider-Man's mind, when he's with Daredevil, he thinks, wow, this is what I wanted to grow up to be.
I can see that. Yeah. That's nice. And he doesn't get to just team up with Spider-Man.
Yeah.
He's also teaming up with the Avengers.
Yep.
How do you think that's going to work, considering the last time we saw Captain America, he wasn't really happy?
Really happy. I know.
No.
This is what we call in the industry Brian Bendis' problem. So we talk about what Daredevil's role in the Avengers is, but basically we decided, okay, you do what you need to do with him in that book in terms of the other characters and the other heroes, and we'll work it out. So
will they be crossing into your series, or
a little bit? We're going to actually. I've got a conference. We have a big Marvel conference next week, and we're going to go talk about some of this stuff. So I'd like to get more of that in. Originally, the plan was I didn't know he was going to be in the Avengers when I started the book. So originally, the plan was to have a lot of the drama between Matt and some of the other Marvel heroes play out in Daredevil. But now that he's in the Avengers, it makes as much sense to have it happen out there.
Do you think there'll be any involvement in any company-wide crossovers anytime soon?
That's possible. I mean, we've been lucky to dodge that bullet so far, but if so, then I'm sure it will work out just fine.
So Daredevil has always been known as the man without fear.
Yeah.
Matt Murdock, though, not so much.
Yeah.
He's scared of failure. He's scared of losing his friends or his girlfriends getting killed. But now that he has been through absolute hell, and like you said, there's not much else that could be done to him. Do you think he's less afraid?
Oh yeah, he's not scared of anything at this point. When you hit those, it's not just hitting the low points. It's hitting the low points and surviving. And being around long enough to know that, look at all the horrible things that I've been through, and I still came out the other side. That it sort of toughens you up, and it sort of reminds you that, everything's impermanent, and there's always going to be a sunrise tomorrow morning. So he's not as afraid. That said, we are stacking the deck against him in year 2. With that very first, year 1 was establishing that Matt is no longer afraid of anything. Year 2 is, now here's the stuff he really ought to be afraid of, and how does he deal with this?
I was saying, what kind of repercussions are we going to see? Because right now he's dealing with his past by shoving it down. Yep. Which is not a healthy thing to do.
No, it's a really unhealthy way of doing it.
Not the greatest coping mechanism. But it sounds like we might start seeing him. He's going to have to deal with it at some point. It's probably not going to be pretty.
No, it won't. He's still got a wife out there. So I think he's divorced from his wife. It was a divorce that was forced upon him by his wife's parents, but she's in an insane asylum, isn't she? Or she's in a hospital or something. I should note to self, do research.
She's out there.
And he at some point he's going to have to deal with that. At some point he's going to have to deal with the fact that right now in the book, he as Daredevil has taken on this artifact. He's stolen this artifact that has on it information on all of the crime families of the world: Hydra, AIM, Black Spectre, all those groups, and they're all going to come gunning after it. And he's got it. It's not the kind of thing you can leave in your office. It's not the kind of thing, because everybody
seems to be doing.
Which he seems to be doing. Actually, by the way, not really. So I'm just saying, only in that one issue. I promise. The next
that made me a little nervous. I'm glad.
I know. No. The next time we find out where he's hidden it, I think you'll be pleasantly surprised. Okay. He's put it someplace where they're not just going to come put a gun through to Foggy's head to find out where it is. But that said, the problem with having an identity where everybody kind of knows who you are and you don't really have a secret identity, he's trying to have fun with that, but at the same time, it's still a pretty dangerous way to live, and it can take its toll on the people around him.
I'd say it's dangerous for Foggy. Well, anybody that he's close to, but Foggy's the one constant. He's been around since the beginning. Yeah. Remained incredibly loyal when most people probably would have said see ya a long time ago.
Boy, I sure hope he lives. So.
I sure hope he makes it through too. Yeah. But how do you see their relationship changing as Matt deals with his demons?
I think it's a good question, and I'll be honest with you, I haven't worked out all the details of that yet, because I thought Foggy would be a little more hands-on in trying to get Matt squared away when I started, and the way it's playing out, it's more fun to use that as a source of friction between them. That it's a growing source of friction. That Matt is just not dealing with the stuff he should be dealing with. I think the first time somebody comes through Nelson and Murdock looking for Daredevil with a giant, atomic cannon on their shoulder, I think they're going to have a sit-down conversation.
Yeah, it's probably due.
Yeah.
But I do like that Foggy is kind of playing matchmaker a little. Daredevil is being flirtatious. He does have a lighter step. Do you think he will have a renewed love life soon?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I make no.
He's not worried they'll get killed.
No, I have no plans on putting any of his girlfriends in refrigerators. I have no plans on gun. As a matter of fact, I've made no bones about this. One of my big inspirations for the series and how I see Matt is the TV show Californication on Showtime. Have you seen this show?
No, I haven't. It's on my list.
But Dave Duchovny is my Matt Murdock. It's suave, sophisticated in a sense, but also sort of coarse. But just going through life like I'm living on my looks and my brains, and you don't like.
Why not?
Why not? Why exactly? Just if it feels good, do it. And so that's my new inspiration for Matt. And just as in that show, Matt is amazing with women, because first off, they all know that they're not being judged by their looks, that when he listens to them, he really hears them, and he's good. He's really good. He's really good. I mean, some of that's, flirtatious crap on his part, but he's still really good.
Yeah, I don't think many women would be able to turn him down. No. He also seems rejuvenated, him and Foggy both, by this new take, by coaching clients rather than being in the courtroom. Yeah. And it also kind of gets rid of the problem of boring courtroom scenes, which are necessary but not exciting to read or necessarily draw or write.
No, they're really dull. I mean, they can be. No one wants to see 7 pages of guys serving objections to each other in a courtroom. That's terrible comics.
Yeah.
That said, you want Matt to be a lawyer, so I like this development of, all right, well, this way, Matt, and it also seems to be in character with Matt. Matt is somebody who learned to stand up to bullies when he was a kid. Matt is somebody who very much respects people who stand up for what they believe in and who stand up against bullies. So for him to coach other people to do what he learned to do, which was to stand up, despite whatever shortcomings or whatever handicaps may be in your way, that seems perfectly consistent with him. And it also allows us to do any kind of story we want to do. We can do small cases that are really just about one person. We can do, as we did with the first time he got involved with this, a bigger case where it's a job discrimination case that turns out to open up into a big criminal conspiracy. I think, if you're clever about this stuff, you can take any sort of case like that and within 2 or 3 steps turn it into something where Dr. Doom would be involved. So